Supported by 3FM 92.7 Accra.
Hello and welcome to Hot Issues. Clearly, the premature retirement of the governor of the Bank of Ghana has generated some controversy. What is the Bank of Ghana supposed to do? How does it do what it's supposed to do? Who manages the bank? How independent is the bank from the government of Ghana? These are some of the issues that we'll be discussing today, and we are particularly privileged to have with us somebody who knows it all, somebody who has served as a deputy governor of the bank before. And he will help us to understand all the different things that are happening in the bank. It is my privilege to welcome to the studio Mr. Emmanuel Aseidu.
That's right.
Mantey. So you're welcome to the studio.
Welcome. Thank you very much. Please.
What is the Bank of Ghana supposed to be doing?
Well, there is a Bank of Ghana law that spells out the functions to be performed by the Bank of Ghana. You can box all this into four main areas. The Bank of Ghana is supposed to conduct monetary policy, and the intention is to maintain the value of the currency. Bank of Ghana is supposed to manage the payment system, the CD notes and all the means of payment that you know of. And then Bank of Ghana is supposed to supervise the financial system. The banks, non-bank financial institutions and so on, they all come under the supervision of Bank of Ghana. And then the other function that most people are not aware of is the fact that Bank of Ghana generates a lot of reports, data on the economy. So these are the functions that Bank of Ghana is supposed to perform.
In your view, is the Bank of Ghana doing well?
Yes, in the circumstances in that it finds itself. We are in difficult economic environment, and the Bank of Ghana doesn't perform or doesn't act alone. It does so in conjunction with the fiscal authority, which is the Ministry of Finance. When these two bodies work hand in hand, the monetary authority and the fiscal authority, then you see its impact on the economy. But under the current circumstances that we find ourselves, yes, we are in difficult economic environment, but the Bank of Ghana is doing very well, I must say.
When you come to think of, the value of the national currency, it's been dipping over the last how many years, 20 years and so.
Right.
Can we still say that the Bank of Ghana is doing well? The currency has depreciated by more than 26,000% over a 30-year period.
The question you should ask is, if the Bank of Ghana hadn't been doing what it's doing, what would have been the currency? That would have been an explosion, right? The fall doesn't come from Bank of Ghana, where you have a situation where government expenditure exceeds its revenue, right? Every year, government mobilizes revenue through taxes and VAT and what is the other? Mm-hmm. Yeah, all right, mobilizes revenue. Mm-hmm. And the minister draws up a budget. And I think, looking at the 2016 one, it says we're going to, government revenues estimated to be 27 or 28 billion cedis. Now, a prudent way of going about it is to spend within that means. But when you exceed that, then you start creating problems. You pump in excess liquidity into the system. Then Bank of Ghana then has the responsibility to mop up that excess. So it's a problem not created by Bank of Ghana, but Bank of Ghana has a responsibility because of what it expects it to do, to be mopping up, to maintain the value of the currency. That's why I'm saying that if it hadn't been doing what it's doing, the situation probably would have been worse.
But is it possible to, as it were, as you say, stay within your means, especially when your means are so meager?
Yes, every government borrows, and more so in a developing country because tax revenues are not enough. But you also don't want to collapse your currency because it affects everybody, retirees like me, workers, And investors as well, because investors come in with the intention of adding value to their investment. So money losing its value quickly doesn't help anybody. So you need to balance. It's a balancing equation. You may spend a little over and above what you've mobilized, but it should be done in such a way that you don't go overboard and destroy the value of the currency.
Now, the United States of America is said to be one of the strongest economies in the world. Now, if you look at their debt to GDP ratio, it's in excess of 300%. How come that Ghana's is supposed to be around 70% and we are raising hell?
But you see, that's a different story altogether. America is the largest economy in the world, as you say. Their currency, the dollar, is a reserve currency of the world. Ghana, with all our problems, we maintain our reserves in dollars, right? Some in a few in pounds and euros, but the bulk of it, about 70% in dollars. Now, this is from Ghana alone. There are all these other countries around the globe that maintain their reserves. So that boosts the American economy, right? It helps them. If you maintain the money doesn't sit in their vaults waiting, they make use of it. So you are not comparing two equal things. The American one is different. If we had a reserve currency like they do, then we could play the game the way the Americans are doing. Unfortunately, our currency is not strong enough to be a reserve currency.
Isn't it possible also for us to engage in international trade without using the dollar?
Our trading partners who are
through the barter system, through the use of the Chinese currency, the Japanese currency, and so on. Is that not a feasibility?
Barter, as you know, was done, I think, in the first regime or so. We used to exchange cocoa with some products from the Eastern European countries, right? I'm not sure whether people or countries still engage in barter trade. But the trend now is to buy and import or export, using a medium of exchange, which is the dollar or the euro. Or now, I think the Chinese currency, the yuan, is also gradually picking up. So barter, I think the days of barter are gone. I'm not saying that it cannot be done, but I don't know of any country that engages in barter trade today. Any currency that is strong enough, and the question then is, how do you make your currency strong? If you import, any country that imports more than it exports, you have your currency weakened. So to make your currency strong, you have to be exporting more than you are importing. Now here in this country, because you know that people, we're importing everything. I think I read in the papers, is it Nunu Mensah? He said during the Independence Day celebration, I read in the papers, he wept because everything that the parade was imported. And it's true. We are importing food. We're importing not only rice, we're importing poultry, we're importing everything. So when you have a country that imports more than it exports, you're weakening your currency. You don't need any magic, non-economic magic to tell you that. And these are the things that we can produce locally, right? Growing rice, growing poultry, those things we can do them locally. So why don't we focus on those things, right? And then import the things that we cannot produce, the machinery, the equipment, and so on. Mm-hmm. Then we'll be doing a lot of justice to the currency. But if you're going to import even matches and toothpicks and so on, that's not going to augur well for the economy and for the currency.
Yeah. Now, sir, does the Bank of Ghana also have any role in the management of inflation, the control of inflation, and what may that role be?
That is the conduct of monetary policy that I told you about. And the central bank, its prime responsibility is to maintain the value of the currency, that I said. So when Bank of Ghana has reason to believe that there's excess money supply in the system, what it does is it mops it up through the issue of treasury bills. So when you buy treasury bills from the Bank of Ghana, what it's doing is that it's mopping up that excess liquidity. And this is why at the beginning I said, if Bank of Ghana hadn't been doing what it's doing, probably the situation would have been chaotic, right? So it mobilizes this excess liquidity in the system, gives it either to government or freezes it in its vaults. so that the currency will maintain its value.
So therefore, it's a way of controlling inflation.
It's a way of controlling inflation.
So
the other dimension to it, before your next question, is that then what gives rise to the excess liquidity should also be blocked, which is excess government expenditure, right? If government can contain its expenditure within its revenue ambits or limits, then there wouldn't be the need to have excess liquidity in the system for Bank of Ghana to be mopping up in the first place.
Is that the only reason why there could be excess liquidity, government spending? Is that the only reason?
That's the major one.
What are the others?
Others, I can't think of other ones at the moment, but mainly I think the bulk of it comes from excess government expenditure, right? There could be other issues that doesn't come to mind immediately.
Okay. Now, over the last 30 years or so, all governments have aimed at achieving single-digit inflation. We managed to do that for a very short time. Why is the Bank of Ghana doing its work?
It's another way of asking the same question, Gracie. The single digit can be achieved if the monetary authority and the fiscal authority can work together as a team, right? If government would learn to stay within its expenditure limits, and Bank of Ghana will also play its role as a monetary authority by mopping up excess liquidity in the system, we can bring inflation down to acceptable limits. Now that you talk about it, something just came up to me. If we are importing excessively, we also import inflation from other countries. So in addition to government expenditure, when we are importing a lot of things that we can produce locally, we're also importing inflation from other people's countries into ours. And that is also a contributory factor to the inflation that we are experiencing.
You emphasize the need for some coordination or cooperation between, for example, the Minister of Finance or Ministry of Finance and the Bank of Ghana.
Right.
But of late, we've been hearing about the independence of the Bank of Ghana. Is there some things that the Bank of Ghana does independently of government? What does this independence mean?
I think this independence has to be explained. After all, according to the Constitution and the Bank of Ghana law, the governor is appointed by the president on the advice of the Council of State. When we talk of independence of the central bank, we're talking of operational independence. In other words, if, for instance, Bank of Ghana has reason to believe that there's need to increase the minimum paid-up capital of banks, it doesn't have to consult the government to do that. If Bank of Ghana believes that the policy rate should be increased or decreased, it doesn't consult the government to do that. So we're talking of operational independence. But in as much as the governor and the deputies are appointed by the president in consultation with the Council of State, then that independence needs to be clarified, because it's not a total independence, it's just operational independence when you talk of independence of the central bank.
Now let us have a scenario where the Bank of Ghana is convinced that the paid-up capital of the operating banks need to increase, and government thinks that it is not a proper thing to do. How is this resolved?
Then the government will be interfering with the operations of the central bank, and then you can't call it operational independence. Now, I'll be surprised with any government who will say Bank of Ghana cannot increase or decrease the minimum capital of banks.
Says it doesn't fit into its policy objectives.
Again, it will be surprising, because before Bank of Ghana decides that the minimum capital of banks should be raised, it would have done its own research work, its own survey, to know the risks that the banks are carrying on their balance sheet. And it would have convened a meeting of all the MDs of these banks and probably exposed to them the dangers inherent in their balance sheet, and therefore the need to cushion those risks by having shareholders' funds increased. So it isn't something that you do on the spur of the moment. It's something that is well considered before such a decision is taken. And don't forget, the governor also has a board. And the board, governor reports to the board. And on the board sees the deputy minister of finance. So there's that linkage. Whatever takes place in the boardroom of Bank of Ghana gets known by the minister of finance because his deputy sees him when all these decisions are being taken.
Now, sir, you've been deputy governor. Have there been instances where there have been disagreements between the bank and government?
Whew. Yes. And now that he said yes, you will recall, Chrissy, I think you and I are of the same age, so you recall there was a time when Bank of Ghana was financing the import of crude oil into the country. And I think Tor's account with Ghana Commercial Bank or one of the banks was overdrawn. And there was need to import crude. And that would have meant building up the overdraft account at the bank, GCB or one of the banks, I don't remember. And then a governor or a deputy governor who was in charge of that function refused to release funds to cover the LC that was going to be established to import the crude. And there was a lot of shortage, and people had to queue. I'm told, I read this morning that Nigeria is queuing for petrol. There was a queue, a shortage of petrol in the system. And that affected operations, transportation, people getting late to work and so on. And the government wasn't happy with that. So it led to a friction between the central bank and the government. I mean, occasionally, it doesn't happen every day. Once in a while, you get this kind of thing happening.
But shouldn't the bank itself be conscious of the social and political consequences of its decisions?
Yes, this is where you have professionalism has to be defined properly. I'm sure the governor at the time was looking at the numbers and say, look, we can't continue building up this debt, right? He was acting professionally, right? And the government will also say, look, you're acting professionally, you end up creating problems for the citizenry. So at what point do you decide to be professional? At what point do you have to look at other considerations or the impact of your professionalism on the populace? It's a balancing act. This is why I've stated that the monetary authority and the fiscal authority have to work hand in hand. If there had been that cooperation, probably we wouldn't have gotten to where we did.
But bottom line is that government is voted for. It has the mandate of the people.
True.
Those at the Bank of Ghana have no mandate.
True.
They are officials.
Right.
Who should carry the day in cases of disagreement?
I believe every government, whether right wing, left wing, center right, center left, whatever, every government would like to see a well-functioning central bank. Every government would like to see a stable macro environment where inflation is tamed, where exchange rate is stable, where interest rates are reasonable, and people can borrow and do businesses and so on. So, given that, you would expect that every government that comes in will want to liaise with the central bank so that this stable macro environment can be achieved, right? And if that is the objective, then I don't see any need for any friction or disagreement.
Interest rates, how are they determined? Who determines them?
A simple answer to that question is that market forces of supply and demand determine interest rates. And I'll expand on that. There have been times when people or governments have tried to do this administratively. I remember during the heat of the revolution, interest rates were as high as they are now because of shortage of goods on the market. And there was scarcity of foreign currency. And somebody came and said, in the boardroom of the Bank of Ghana, I was a young officer, came and said, look, the chairman says, those days you were chairman, chairman says, henceforth interest rate shall be 8%, no more, no less. So the banks cannot charge anything more than 8%. And then I think they went ahead and said the CD should exchange for so much per dollar. You can do it administratively by fiat. But then when you do that, you've created a problem. Then you go to Zongo Lane, and that's where the actual market forces are at play, right? So normally you wouldn't want to do that kind of thing. We call it controls. You let market forces of supply and demand, determine the equilibrium price.
It's been said that the interest rates are very high. Are they?
Yeah, interest rates are high. Government itself is borrowing at 22, 25% treasury bill rate, whether it's 91 days or 182 days. So that shows you that interest rates are high. Why? Because the government is borrowing. So demand is exceeding supply. So that jacks up the price. And the banks, I'm told, are lending at 30, 35% or so. Obviously, that's on the high side. Businesses cannot borrow to expand, and people who cannot pay, So, and I think I read recently also that non-performing loans ratio of the banks are going up because borrowers can't pay if the interest rates are that high. So it has a negative effect all over.
But at the same time, it is alleged that the banks are making super profits.
Well, banks are like traders, right? They buy money, they sell money, right? It's like me going to Kintampo to buy yam. If I go, the price is 1 CD. I track it down to Accra. I sell it for 2 CDs. I make my margin. If I go and it's 10 pesos, I buy it, I come and sell it for 50. So the banks are financial intermediaries, right? They buy money, they sell money. So interest rates high or low, as long as they get their margin, they will make their profit.
Yeah, but doesn't the interest rate also affect the returns that the banks make?
It does. It does, because if prices are rising, right, and you churn up profit, it means in real terms, the economy is calling the real value of the money gets depreciated. So even though normally the figure may be high, in real terms, its value is low.
So couldn't we reduce the profits of the banks and thereby affect the interest rates?
No, the interest rate element, that has nothing to do with the profit of the banks. Like I said, the banks are traders. They are trading, right? And they go to buy what is on the market. I mean, if you place your money with them, right, they bought the money from you. They pay you some interest on it. And the same money, it doesn't sit in the vault. They lend it. So the margin between how much they paid you, a depositor, and how they lent is the margin. That has nothing to do with the price of...
yeah, but that margin also determines their profit.
Yes.
Yes.
But
if we lower that margin, which is the interest chargeable on the loans they give, couldn't we be bringing down the interest rates?
Oh,
That's
I see
my
the
question.
point you're making.
Yeah.
Yes, but you also need to look at the overheads that the banks are carrying. They need to pay their staff. They need to, all the equipment, the computers they're working with, right? The air conditionings and all that. So that margin between how much they pay you, the depositor, how much they lend, is meant to cover all these other expenditures. You need to look at the profit and loss account of the banks. It's a huge expenditure list. It isn't everything that goes to them by way of profit. You need to pay consultants, you need to pay the staff, you need to pay for water, electricity, everything, like you and I do. So a greater chunk goes into expenditure. And then some goes to the shareholders, people whose monies were used to establish the bank. So after paying all this, then the leftover then is the profit that they plow back into the business.
So can we now look at the regulatory functions of the bank in the light of DKM and God is love and so on? What is happening?
I think the president announced this in his nation of
State of the
Nation address. That I think there was some laxity in supervision. And I think I agree. You know, the central bank licenses so many of them, 400 or so. And these are institutions additional to the banks that we have. The banks, I think, now over 30, we call them universal banks, over 30 now, 32 or 33. And then you have savings and loans companies, you have finance houses, you have foreign bureaus, you have rural banks. All these institutions are licensed by the Bank of Ghana. They have to be supervised, right? I think what happened was that we were too happy licensing these institutions, and we forgot about the need to supervise them. No. And that temptation is there. When you license an institution that takes deposits from the public, and you don't supervise them, what happened will happen, because then they will divert the funds that they mobilized. And those funds are not for the microfinance institutions. They are not for the banks. They are for depositors. That's why there's need to regulate and supervise how those monies are deployed. If you leave them loose, then obviously what happened will happen. They will divert the funds.
Now, sir, when the Bank of Ghana is lax, especially in its supervisory responsibility and so on, how do we punish the bank and its officials?
You mean the central bank?
Yeah.
How do you punish them?
Yeah. In the light of their proclaimed independence.
This is something that the monetary authority, the appointing authority has to address, because you appoint somebody.
Can the president dismiss the governor?
If the president has reason to believe that the governor has not performed according to what the acts, Bank of Ghana Act expects him to do, yes. Even the president can be impeached.
Yeah.
So why can't the governor, right? If for instance, there's reason to believe that the governor is not performing according to what the law says he should be doing, if the governor is indisposed and cannot function properly, if the governor, for some reason, has some very serious adverse findings against him, of course, he can be dismissed on those grounds. But
but how does this sit with the operational independence of the bank if we can change the governor, if a government can change the governor?
The law doesn't make any provisions for the sacking of a governor, but I would like to think that since the Bank of Ghana is a company, is governed by a law, and the law, I'm not sure whether there are provisions for the removal of a governor. But what I'm saying is that if the appointing authority has reason to believe that the mandate given the governor is not being met or being performed, he must have a way of sidelining him, and let somebody else do the job,
But how would that sit with the operational independence of the bank?
No, operational independence is different from what we discussed. Like I said, operational independence.
As you say, in that instance, when the government disagrees with the Bank of Ghana or the governor of the Bank of Ghana and it gets tough, just remove the governor, bring somebody who will do what the government wants.
No.
And then the operational independence of the bank is
there's
compromised.
a law. Don't forget, there's a law that says Bank of Ghana should be doing A, B, C, D. And I think I gave an idea, an overview, conducting monetary policy, management of the payment system, supervising the financial institutions and generating data and reports and so on. These are broadly, now, if in performing these functions, you have a reason, or the appointing authority has reason to believe that the governor is not living up to expectation, yes, he can take it up with the appointing authority.
But all the functions you listed, there are several ways of carrying them out. There's not one way of carrying them out.
True.
So there can't be disagreement between government and the governor on how to carry out these functions.
Right.
If the president has the power to remove the governor, wouldn't that compromise the independence of the bank?
The independence aspect of it, as I said earlier, is that the governor doesn't have to consult the appointing authority in taking those decisions. Governor doesn't have to consult the appointing authority or the president when he says or decides that the policy rate should be reduced or increased, right? Those are in the realms of operations. Now, what we're discussing now, what you are alluding to, is where functions listed in the law, A, B, C, D, and somebody appointed to perform those functions is not doing it to the way, or doing it in the way that the law says it should be done. Then obviously that will be creating problems for everybody, not only for the appointing authority. Because like you rightly said, the president has the mandate of the majority of Ghanaians. They voted for him to run the show for 4 years. So if he has reason to believe that somebody is planted somewhere is not doing what he should be doing, I believe that he has a right, you know. But that it might be based on a very good reason, because you just cannot say that, look, I don't like the nose of Aseidu Mantey. He's my governor. I don't like the nose of him, so I'm moving him and I'm bringing somebody who has a good-looking nose like Kwesi Pratt. It must be a reason that is tangible that everybody can hold on to, you know, for moving the governor, you know.
Now, sir, Bank of Ghana.
Right.
You think it's done very well, or is doing very well?
I think he's done very well over the years. There have been difficult, you know, like institutions, there have been ups and downs, but on the average, I think he's performed very well.
Okay. Now, only a couple of weeks ago, the governor retired prematurely.
Right.
You've heard all the comments that have been made in the public domain. Are we being fair to the governor?
Fair to the governor. My understanding from what I read in the papers is that he's taking his leave prior to retirement. Now, the law says the governor has 4 years. At the end of the 4-year period, he's subject to renewal. Now, this guy comes in and he says, 1 term is enough for me, you know, and I have accumulated leave, so I'm taking it prior to retirement. I don't see any unfairness about it, because he served his first term, full term.
But there are those who have said, and I've heard commentary from some politicians, that under his tenure, the Bank of Ghana's performance was the worst in our history. Is that fair to the governor?
You can get as many comments as the number of people you interview. Everybody, and like you say in politicians, and it depends on which side of the equation you are, you know. There are those who hate him as having done well. There are those who think his performance wasn't good enough. But I, as somebody who's been there before, I know that not all the problems are caused by the Bank of Ghana, right? I think I told about the huge budget deficit that's created and which causes a lot of problem for the central bank. So, and then you have an economy where we're importing more than we're exporting. When you create that kind of situation, you don't blame a governor if your exchange rate is not stable, or where you have a huge budget deficit and interest rates are rising and the government is borrowing at such a high interest rate. So part of the problem should be borne by other agencies or institutions, rather than everything being heaped on the Bank of Ghana. Bank of Ghana, if the two authorities, and I'm talking about the fiscal authority and the monetary authority, are working in tandem, most of these problems can be handled without any negative impact on the economy.
I'm going to go back to something which has happened, the redenomination exercise.
Okay.
Now, on hindsight, was it worth it? Has it been beneficial?
I think it was. It has been beneficial. Because you see, look, those days, right? You have the computer field, you're on your PC. We were talking of millions and billions, There were times you couldn't even get space for the zeros on your computer, And all, I think Zimbabwe is the one that comes to mind immediately, right? They talk of trillions when they're talking of, something very little. We got to that level where we needed to bring some sanity into the currency, So if you have so many zeros at the bank at the end of your figure, and the zeros are not serving any purpose, well, the question is why don't you just drop it, And then you can be talking, more realistically with figures. So I think it was a very worthy exercise that was carried out by the central bank.
Hasn't that also contributed to lowering the value of the currency?
No.
Because I recall what we could do with 10 cedis in those days.
Yes.
10 cedis today is 1 cedi. Children would not take 10 cedis from you, 1 cedi from you. But in those days, if you gave somebody 10 cedis, that was good money.
That's the more reason why the redenomination took place, because the money was losing value so fast. And people were not talking of single numbers. They were talking of millions. You talk 1 million and you're talking of 100 cedis, right? So people were quoting rent and quoting prices in millions. If you go to the village today, they're still talking millions, right?
Yeah.
And how far do you want to go with that,
But the zeros have started coming back. The zeros have started coming back, and they're rising.
Because of the inflation in which we are. We are in an inflationary economy, right? Is it 18% or so the last time? Yeah. So we are in an inflationary economy. That's why we're talking about single digit. If you're able to bring it to single digit, then all this will not happen.
So shouldn't we be more interested in coming to single digit than just wiping out zeros?
I think you can do both to achieve maximum result. Wipe out the zeros, and then you take measures to bring it to single digit. And I think this is a two-pronged approach that has been adopted now, right? The target of the central bank is to bring it into single digit. And I think the government also, they want to bring inflation into single digit, which has been achieved before. At the same time, you didn't want to be carrying those zeros with you. So they had to be, gotten rid of.
We are very, very privileged to have with us Mr. Emmanuel Aseidu Mantey, former Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana. And we are talking about the Bank of Ghana. We are talking about its work, how it may or may not be controlled, and its relationship with government. Now, sir, the difficult question. The President bypassed the first Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana and appointed the second Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana as the governor. Can this be justified?
Chrissy, I'm looking at the law, right? Both the Constitution and the law. And there's a provision in there says that the governor is the CEO of the Bank of Ghana. Now, when the governor is away, either on assignment outside the country or is indisposed, the first deputy governor takes over, steps into the shoes. And when both of them, the governor and the first deputy governor are out of the country or for some reason are unable to perform, then the second deputy governor takes over. There's no swearing in this case. It's automatic, it kicks in. But that is when it comes to performing a function, when there's a vacuum. And I think it's being crafted in such a way that there will not be a vacuum when the governor or the first is away. But at the same time also, the Constitution says the appointment of a governor and the two deputies is to be done by the President in consultation with the Council of State. So such a sensitive appointment, I would like to think that the President consulted with the Council of State and in their wisdom decided that this is the man who should occupy the seat. They are operating within the ambit of the law or the Constitution.
But if the first deputy governor is not qualified to be governor, why would you keep him there?
Nobody said that he's not qualified to be governor.
That the second deputy governor is more qualified than he is.
No. You see, I think there are two things here, Kwesi. Let's get it clear. The provision in the Bank of Ghana Act and the provision in the Constitution says when the substantive is away, the first steps in, right, to act as governor. And then when both of them, the governor and the first are out, then the second also acts as governor. You're acting as governor. But that's different from appointing a governor.
But if the first deputy is good enough to be governor, why would you bypass him and go for the second deputy? That's the question.
I don't know the consideration that went into the appointment of Dr. Isaku or something. But like I said, I would be extremely surprised if the president did it without consulting the Council of State. And the Council of State is made up of very eminent people. And I wasn't party to the discussion that took place there. But I would like to give him the benefit of the doubt that he did his research, did his consultations, and decided that this is the best way forward. So that's about all that I can say about it.
Well, it has been reported also that the current governor doesn't have an economics background. Is that a problem?
No, from what I read in the papers, he has an agricultural economics degree for a master's degree. And that is good enough, right? We've had governors who are third degree holders in economics, right? So at the master level, if somebody has agricultural economics, he's not new to economics. And that aside, he's been a deputy governor for 3 years, right? So he has a feel of what goes on within the premises of the Bank of Ghana. So he's not new to developments or the functions of the Bank of Ghana. When we joined, right, many years back, you made to serve a probation. And during that probation period, you made to go around. So you spend maybe 4 weeks here in this department, another 2 months in this department, 6 weeks here. So at the end of the probation period, 1 year, you would have had an overview of what takes place within Bank of Ghana. Now, the guy has been there 3 years, at that level. So he obviously knows what goes on there.
Not at the lower levels, at the very high level.
At the policy level, yes.
At the policy level, right. Yes. So you're satisfied?
I'm okay with it. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Let's see how he performs, I wouldn't fault him at this stage. It's too early.
Now, sir, one of the other complaints that keeps coming up is the proliferation of foreign banks. Is that a concern for you? Is it a concern for you that we have too many or so many foreign banks?
No, it's not. It's not a
country?
concern to me. Because you see, the older ones like me, and this is not too long ago, we had 4 or 5 banks that controlled about 75% of the banking business in the country. Those days, the banks could dictate. They wanted you to have a few millions of CDs those days before they will open an account for you. Now, we launched a lot of banks, foreign, local. Today, they are chasing customers. That's what competition does. I'm not worried about the number of banks in the system because I don't think we've reached the saturation point yet. When we get there and there's no more business out there where most of people are banking or putting their money in the bank themselves will start merging. And the stronger ones will start acquiring the weaker ones, right? It happens normally in Europe and America. where there are mergers and acquisitions and so on. We are not there yet. Now
But-
every bank is doing business and making money, like you said.
Yeah.
Very soon they'll be publishing their financials. You see, all of them are, and there are still a large chunk of people who are banked in our rural areas.
But I'm not just talking about numbers. I'm talking about foreign banks. You know, Nigeria is taking stringent measures to control foreign banks from coming in. We are opening up. Our approach and the approach of Nigeria are different. Are we satisfied with our approach?
I'm not worried about the nationality of the banks that are coming in because there are laws to govern them. Our laws do not allow branching. In other words, you can't have, say, Citibank sitting in America and having a branch in Ghana. Our laws say that it might be a subsidiary. In other words, it might be registered locally, right? And then you come under the supervision of the Bank of Ghana. So every bank here, whether from Papua New Guinea, wherever, you have to be registered locally and you have a board of directors. So that gives us power, control over the operations. It's different when they have branches. You know, the branches, they just come and siphon funds away. But when you have them as subsidiaries, then they come under our laws and you have controls over them. And that's what our law does.
Not too long ago, there was a report about one of the bosses of these banks bringing in fake currency and passing it through the system. How could that happen?
That is criminal. That's completely criminal.
But how could that happen?
I really don't know, Kwesi. I can't address that because for a bank CEO to bring in fake currency through our borders, that it means everybody is asleep at our borders. It means is immigration or whatever. No, it shouldn't happen. If it did, that means there's laxity somewhere that needs to be investigated.
Now, sir, as a former deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana, and knowing what you know, looking at the Ghanaian economy, where do you think we're going? Are there any prospects for the future? What are the dangers facing the Ghanaian economy?
Was it yesterday or today? I was reading an IMF report, and they're saying that the two major economies on the African continent, Nigeria and South Africa, the prospects are not good, you know, because the economy, and they mentioned Ghana also, that the population is increasing by 2.5, 2.7%, and they estimate that GDP growth is going to be about 4%, a decline from the 7 or 8 that we were achieving some time ago.
That's
Now,
for the three countries.
No, for Ghana. No, so when you have, Nigerian case is worse, but I'm dwelling on Ghana now. Now, we've done 14% before with oil, and then we came to 8%, you know. But the point I'm making is that the growth rate has declined. Now, if you have an increase in population, 2.5, 2.7 is estimated, then you need to grow above that. The economy needs to grow above to be able to maintain the same level of standard of living. Now, it's been projected that maybe come next year, that'll be 2017.
17.
It's a projection, no reality, that the economy will pick up and hit about 7%. We're all looking up to that and praying that we hit the 7%, because then that'll be good for us.
But that would be a significant improvement.
The drop from 8 to 4% is worrying.
But that would be a significant improvement. 4% to 7%
Yes.
is significant.
Yes, and it's achievable, provided we will put our acts together.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you very much, sir.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
very much for coming. Well, viewers, we've been having a conversation with Mr. Emmanuel Aseidu Mantey, former Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana. And we've ended on a rather positive note that the prospects look good for next year. It's likely that GDP growth will be around 7%, a rise from 4%. That's quite positive. Now, as I always say, the best is on this station. So please stay with this station if you want the best in entertainment, the best in news, the best in current affairs, the best in sports, and the best in everything. Until we meet again next week, it's goodbye from all of us, the production team, cameramen, makeup artists, everybody. Goodbye from Hot Issues.
Supported by 3FM 92.7 Accra.